Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if one of you has the moon in Leo and the other has the moon in Taurus. And right away, when you're talking about comparing two people's astrological profiles, if you have very important planets, personal planets, that are in fixed signs, that are, in common with one another, that brings up some particular challenges. First of all, Leo and Taurus form a square. And it's important to note that you would have to actually look at each person's chart to see what degree their moons are in to see if it's an official square. A square is a challenging aspect that creates friction. Um, you can have it within your own chart, and you can have two planets that square off to each other, and it's like whatever those two planets represent, it creates a sense of feeling frustrated about being able to accomplish that. So, for instance, if in your personal chart you have the sun square Mars, you may feel like it's really hard for you to accomplish your goals, that you're being thwarted. And it can lead to a lot of frustration. However, it can also lead the person to be very ambitious, and it has its good side to it because they may persevere. They may not, like if somebody has a trine, they may take things for granted and think that they're just going to fall in their lap all the time, and maybe they normally do, but there's not that necessarily that drive that makes somebody keep pushing. So it's not to say that it's always going to be negative, but it is challenging, as it's considered a challenging aspect overall. And remember that you don't have just one aspect with another person. So even if you have a challenging aspect with somebody, that can be offset by maybe your sun signs are trining each other. And so your objectives are very harmonious. It's just that emotionally, you may tend to get a little bit frustrated with one another. I mean, even by itself, these two moon signs can indicate like a stubborn emotional nature. So just think about how you are personally, and then imagine yourself with another person who has a similar kind of way of expressing their feelings or feeling their feelings. So, just looking at this individually, we have the moon in Leo, which can be a person who's very warm hearted. Actually, I think this combination can be good for warmth. Even though it's, in a tense angle, it still is, you have two people that are going to express themselves in a very warm manner in the case of Leo, and balanced or grounded way in the case of Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus, so the person who has the moon in Taurus has a natural kind of benefit because they have emotional stability coupled with, and when I say emotional stability, I'm talking about the fixed nature of it, but also the earth element is going to make a person less detached, so they're not reactive. Usually the moon and Taurus person will be chill. Now, of course, again, what if the person's sun sign is in fire or water? They may be more emotional or passionate, and that's going to change that a little bit. For the person who has the moon in Leo, they could be more volatile because, it's a fire sign that you're talking about. And the moon in fire, in some cases, the person may even be a little bit of a hothead. And the thing with the moon signs in general is I always look at more of the shadow aspects of the sign and how they will express themselves. So with Leo in the moon position versus the sun position, there may be more insecurity about being noticed and admired. So what that can show up as is more of a need to promote oneself or to be successful or to be the center of attention than somebody with the sun in Leo. When you think about somebody who is a ham, who hams it up, and that could be Leo rising in particular, they're looking for attention, but it's not, that's not really that's kind of complicated because some people are really looking for attention, but sometimes, and I think the sun in Leo can really showcase this, is that they are looking to express themselves creatively with themselves, literally talking about their body. Like, for instance, somebody who is, well, when I say body, like a performer, somebody who is naturally uh, acclimated to being an actor, for instance. They're just very outgoing and they have this desire to be, they're very self expressive. They may, take any opportunity to be in front of other people in public settings. Or somebody who is a musician, they may go to open mics. They may not say, oh, I'm just going to stick with professional gigs. They may do something even for free just because, they might go on a street corner in a busy city. And yes, they're trying to make money, but they're also really wanting to perform. It's like part of their life blood. Is it life's blood or lifeblood? But anyway, the moon sign can be more, to me, it's almost like compulsive, like they have to do it because there's an emotional component to it. So they're trying to get their emotional needs met through it. I was just thinking about Paul McCartney, and he has the moon in Leo. And there was a story about him. I think he was visiting John Lennon one day, and it must have been close to the end of John's life because he was living in New York at the time. Well, maybe not. The last 10 years of his life, he was living in New York. And John had this piano, and John's companion at that time said that Paul just kept staring at that piano, and finally he just had to go over there and start playing something. Now, it's also the case where the person is so emotionally connected to our art and creativity that they're compulsive about it. So, you could say like that idea of playing music, that to him, he couldn't resist that urge. But maybe there was an element of look at me, I want attention, I want praise, I want validation. So that can show up sometimes as the dark side of Leo, which we associate with narcissism, arrogance. So thinking that you're better than someone else, and those kinds of behaviors can be like snobbery, being patronizing to other people, all of those kinds of personality traits, they can show up with the moon sign. And then Taurus is more down to earth. So a Taurus person is going to naturally abhor anybody who tries to pull rank on other people. So there could be, some clashes when it comes to how the people express themselves with others because of their emotional needs that they're trying to get met. Sometimes people, when they're in public, like let's say they're, dealing with waiters, and then they kind of boss them around and treat them like crap. They said you can tell a narcissist, or you can tell how somebody, their character, by how they treat a waiter, a server. or someone that is in a paid position to help them, because sometimes people who don't feel powerful within themselves, they use that as an opportunity to kind of lord over someone because, hey, I'm paying this person, so therefore they're my slave, basically. Or if they're an employer, or like if they are a boss, that they are, going to be a petty tyrant because they can be. So that's another thing with the moon in Leo, is that there may be domineering attitude. And again, this doesn't have to be the case. I'm looking at the worst case scenario, because that's what I do when I talk about the moon. There can be generosity, but the generosity, see, this is where things can get tricky with this combination, because both of these signs like to live large. And if there is materialism with the moon and Taurus person, hey, they may be attracted to that moon and Leo person because of that generosity that this person will give. And you have to remember that. And so with the sun in Leo versus the moon in Leo, there could be more of that shadow side kind of creeping up with, why is the person being generous? Maybe the person's being generous because of their insecurities. There's an agenda behind it. They want to keep somebody with them. So that could be something that hooks into this couple on both sides, because it would be bad for both people. By the way, when I say materialism, I'm talking about people who are excessively preoccupied with things, and who are always, who never seem satisfied with their possessions. They're always wanting more, and they're always talking about it. They don't seem to talk about ideas as much. They're just so into the physical. And the the moon in Taurus person, it's not that they're necessarily gold diggers, but they might be somebody who just really likes the fact that they're with somebody who will, be so generous. And so they might be more likely to stay in that relationship, even if they're not really fulfilled. And if you give to others from a place of insecurity, that's not really inspired giving. That's more like fear-based, in a sense, because the person is afraid that another person will leave them. And the materialism, I think that's a very important aspect that isn't emphasized enough in relationships, because are we or are we not spiritual beings having a human experience? You can't take it with you. I've just dealt with death recently, more than once. And when people are leaving this world, all those things that they were so obsessed about are they're basically dust as far as they're concerned, because it no longer can save them or entertain them or anything. So it's so important to put money and material possessions in their proper perspective. And it's a lesson that many couples learn when they join forces, because sometimes there can be differences in how people view money, and that can cause a lot of clashes. In this particular case, the moon signs can really point to, I think, people's money mojo. Also look to the Venus sign, because that can give an idea of, how that person values money or interacts with it. And with the moon, it's like the security factor. Is money something that is really important to you? And with Taurus, that would stand to reason. With Leo, the motivation of Leo when they feel insecure may be to be respected, to feel like they are on the A list, So money may be used to make the person feel like they are successful. And so the designer clothing, the very, uh, you know, expensive jewelry, the car that is, you know, flashy or whatever. That kind of thing may be important to Leos. And a Taurus person it may not bother them that that person is like that, as long as there's more where that came from, as long as that person has the ability to earn money. Taurus rules the house of money, the second house. Well, of, their own money. Scorpio rules the eighth house, which is shared resources. But we think of the second house as the main house for money because it's kind of an all, one size fits all situation. And possessions too. So Taurus is all about that. And I think both of these signs are very capable of earning nice livings, these moon sign positions, because it's something that is emotionally near and dear to their heart, to have substantial resources to make themselves feel better, to make themselves feel safe, in the case of Taurus. But even with Leo, too, because fixed signs want guarantees. Fixed signs, if your moon sign is in a fixed sign, chances are you're very steadfast in your love for people. You're not fickle. Like if you love someone, you're going to be pretty loyal. But it can also make the person a bit apprehensive when the outer world seems like it's shifting quite a bit. So it can make them double down and be like even more like, I'm going to be, maybe it's more fiscally conservative than I'm giving you credit for, because again, the moon sign can be anything. I mean, the sun sign can be anything if your moon is in these signs. The moon changes very rapidly every 2 days. So it's not tied to your sun in particular, whereas some inner planets like Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they are definitely tied to. I'm talking about the sun in these signs. They're tied to your sun, and so therefore, I can't speculate what your sun sign is based on your moon sign. And some sun signs are going to be more laissez-faire. They're not going to be worried too much about things changing. They may even welcome a lot of change in life. Examples: Gemini, even Sagittarius, all the mutable signs to some degree. But a lot of people are concerned about the person that they're with possibly abandoning them. Scorpio comes to mind. And so they tend to be possessive. Both of these moon signs, I think, can be possessive. And again, I think it is because of fear of losing, change, Both of these, what these signs can have in common, besides a love of luxury, is a love of creativity. Taurus maybe with music, and Leo can be music and everything else. Also, both of these signs I put on my top 3 of lustful signs, lusty signs: Aries, Leo, and Taurus. And why is that significant? Because if a person is very sensual in their basic makeup, their personality makeup, they are going to respond to people in that way. They're going to be physically they're going to take their physical attraction for others. Maybe they're easily aroused by a potential prospect, and they may confuse love and lust. And that I really believe that Leos deal with this quite a bit, and Aries people and Taurus as well. The only thing, I mean, Taurus people can have that level-headedness that comes from being an earth sign, where maybe in the 11th hour they kind of wise up and say, wait a second, this is not really, this is a one-dimensional relationship. But I think the fire signs, they tend to be very romantic and get carried away because of that fire element is very expansive. And they may just be so in that mode of passion that they neglect to see that they're in something that is not really all that it's cracked up to be. And, when the sex gets more predictable, or they just maybe they start to have more and more clashes with that person outside of the bedroom, then they realize maybe they'll never realize and just think that it's that other person's fault, when it's really because they were not truly compatible. And they thought that being compatible physically was the end all be all, and it wasn't. So be very careful about that, because both of you can share in that. And that's part of the indulgence. I think that both of these signs can get overly indulgent, and that can lead to all kinds of, um, you know, issues, because you may egg each other on unwittingly. When two people are a bit self-indulgent, and they come together, that can be a little bit tricky, because they may bring out the worst in each other. And with the moon positions, this is especially important to deal with, because it's being triggered by the emotions. You know, a lot of addictions, you can obviously see the connection between one's emotional status and their addiction of choice, because they feel lonely, or they feel angry or sad, and they grab whatever. It doesn't have to be, we're not always talking about substance abuse. There are other types of addictions as well. And again, because both of these signs are fixed signs, they can be quite possessive, and they may, exhibit jealousy if they are afraid. Because you think of possessive, it's because the person is considering that person their possession. And so they're afraid of losing that possession, especially Taurus, because it rules that house, which includes possessions. And the moon in Taurus person may take for granted that the person they're with is a separate person, and they have the right to their own beliefs and behaviors, and they have the right to, have their own friends, and to go out without having to be attached to the hip with their partner all the time. And that may not sit well with somebody who has a moon in Taurus, unless they have some sun sign that is more freewheeling and not as tight on the grip on somebody, and they like their freedom. Maybe they wouldn't be like that, like if their sun is in Sagittarius. But it's interesting, because I'm a sun in Sagittarius, and I have Taurus rising. And, regardless if you're talking about moon, sun, moon, or rising sign, these themes can show up anywhere. They might manifest a little bit differently at different times in one's life, but they can still show up as similar. And that was something that I had to conquer, is this idea of possessiveness. I don't have it much anymore, if at all, but I did at one time for sure. And that's basically insecurity and fear, thinking that they would rather be with other people, not realizing that it's really healthy to have your own life, even within a relationship. So both of you may have to adjust in that way. But another way you're going to really have to adjust is being able to give in to another person's desires, because this is the desire part of ourselves too. The moon, our emotions are our desires. Now we could say Mars fits into this in some degree, to some degree, but I think also the moon, ultimately it's our longings. And so sometimes, even like I would say in this combination, the Taurus person may express themselves more dryly, and that may be kind of exasperating to the Leo person who's larger than life and wants to over dramatize life. Because, and this is a good thing, I think, is that the Moon and Leo person really takes life seriously in terms of seeing the importance of it. And so there's a strong need to celebrate, there's a strong need to express. Taurus is more meat and potatoes, more kind of like nondescript, and, you know, maybe likes one's creature comforts, but doesn't like that over the top quality. And I know, just like I told you, with my combination, I have the moon in Virgo, so I have a lot of earth in my personal planets. I feel kind of drained around people who are very extroverted and who are very kind of like um, loud and attention seeking, or just even if they're not trying to seek attention, they just are very like emotive or self-expressive. I find that they're too like unsettling, They tend to be very it's like they suck the oxygen out of the room. And so the moon and Leo person may be that type of person for the moon in Taurus, like overwhelming in some way. Um, and the moon in Taurus person may be more of a homebody. Of course, like I said, you have to check other things in the chart to see if this is going to play out. But I think that if these two people are compatible in other areas, they can last a long time, being both fixed moon sign, because they're going to be loyal to one another. They're not going to just toss that person. But the thing is, and this is super duper important, if you know that you're with somebody, if you're in this combination and you're having a lot of clashes, then it's important to be very honest about that. And if you've really checked yourself and you say, I'm not a difficult person, I'm trying to be, kind of open to compromise, which is hard when you have that fixed nature. Both people have that fixed nature. But if you really have tried to be open and see things from the other person's point of view and it still isn't working, then you have to let it go at some point, because you're just like staying with something that is possibly toxic. Only you can decide if it has gotten to that stage, but this idea of mindless loyalty doesn't make any sense. So it's very important to gauge what your relationship is and be able to let go if you have to. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. Again, like I said, you have to look at more than just moon signs in terms of relationship compatibility. If you would like me to look at both of your charts, I do things in a kind of a different way. The typical astrologer might use composite charts, which, when you think about synastry with, relationship compatibility, that's what they do. And in the first place, people are individuals. So combining their charts, trying to merge them, I think that's not how I want to approach things. And plus, I can't read those damn things. So that would be a hard pass for me. But I kind of have developed my own method. And it's really for people who are having problems, or single people who have, are looking for love, and they're like, okay, when is it going to get here? Not that I can, guarantee exactly when, but at least kind of talk about behavioral patterns and also timing. There might be especially good timing in the near future for that. But for relationship issues, it can pinpoint some of the dynamics that have been going on, and you can decide whether or not you're contributing to the problem, because that's a really self-empowering thing. It's not like blaming the victim. It's like, okay, oh yeah, okay, well, this person is defensive, but I'm putting them on the defensive because I'm, behaving in a way that is not respectful of them. And I didn't really realize that I was doing this. I thought it was okay to do this. But, then again, I come from a dysfunctional family, so what do I know? I just am repeating what I've seen in the past. And maybe I'm a little bit better and thinking that I'm different, but I'm really doing the same old, same old. And I really want to change, because when you change, your relationship will change. I'm not saying it's going to save the relationship, but the relationship will not be stagnant. It will change. And this is why, people who are codependent, when they break that codependency, they tend to see a lot of changes in their relationship, because the dynamics are no longer present. They're no longer rescuing that other person. And therefore, they're forcing, if that person has an addiction, let's say you're living with somebody who's an alcoholic, and you're like trying so hard to get them to change. You're hiding liquor bottles, you're doing all these crazy things. But all it's doing is prolonging the inevitable. But you love this person dearly and you don't want to just walk out on them. Well, you can always change your behavior. And that involves beginning to take care of yourself and letting that person take care of themselves. Whatever happens. Because, and that's very, very difficult. I always recommend the book Codependency No More by Melody Beattie, because that's a classic on, things you can do for yourself. But so if you want a reading, relationship reading, or any other type of reading, the link is below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.